What is going on, everyone? I
Good
think we are
evening.
live. Yoav here with me, and we'll just wait a few seconds to make sure we are live. Yoav, can you make sure we live on your end?
Yes, I'm gonna make sure. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, we're good. Let's do
Everything
this.
looks on my end that we are live. So we have a special guest with us today. Mr. Steve Trang from Phoenix, Arizona is here with us. What's going on, Steve?
Not a whole lot. I wouldn't say a special guest, just a friend. Just a friend.
Special to me. You are special to me, Steve. Steve, for those of us, again, let's tell people how you and I got to know each other. Again, we have a interesting within the same mastermind. What again? I've been following you. Again, you've been following me. So, do you remember
Yeah.
how we?
So I
know
would
each other?
say that, there were several people that we have mutual friends, right? Max Mendes, my business partner, always spoke very highly of you. He was a follower of yours. And then at one point, Carlos and Sal brought up your name during a podcast. I was like, oh, I guess I'm out here. And you turned me down because I was too small. And then eventually we worked in the mastermind together, the one that's run by Scott Oots, the supergroup.
Right.
And then so you came down to Phoenix to do the podcast with me, which I tell people all the time is still my favorite episode. And then after that, we were able to connect through Supergroup and interact more often. Unfortunately, you decided to pack your bags and move to Israel, so we don't get to hang out as much.
Now
Yeah.
he's with us, Steve. Now he's with us.
And that's not
Yeah.
fair.
I'm back with my peeps. Back with my peeps in the Holy Land. But still, again, I appreciate our friendship, and I'm excited. Everybody excited that you are here. You are big names in the industry, and again, for those for those of us who don't know what you do, can you give us like a quick intro of again what do you do today, which market you are, and overall?
I can't do a quick intro because I'm a serial entrepreneur and I do too many things. So I'm a realtor, real estate broker. I own a brokerage, I own a title company, have a podcast, Real Estate Disruptors. We do sales training. That's what we're most known for right now, besides podcasting. We wholesale, we flip. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, and we also do virtually in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Let's see, what else is there? I guess it wasn't that long. I'm very much a family man, so I try to pack all those things into under 45 hours a week. So no matter what's going on and however many business I have today or in the future, family always comes first and foremost.
100%.
For sure. Family first. Both Yoav and I are family men. So we appreciate, again, our core values are in line. That's why, again, I think, again, I follow you. I like what you do. I don't like to work as hard as you do, I guess. That's the only difference between the two of us.
I just have to wake up earlier is all. I wake up at 5 a.m. That's it. That's the only difference. I still leave the office around 5, 6 o'clock. I just wake up at 5 a.m.
Got it. All right, great. So let's dive into it. I think we have a lot of questions for you, and for whoever is here with us, please feel free to ask your questions here to make sure, again, we bring the most value to you. Again, this is for you, most and foremost. We want to make sure we serve you, add the most value to you. And again, we have Steve here, and not every day we have an expert like you. So I know a lot of people want to ask you a question about sales process, but before we do that, you work in multiple markets, you coach salespeople. What do you feel overall about the market right now? Do you feel that it's still super hot, or what you see in your market is a little different because it's been crazy in a lot of markets? Some markets, I get a sense that it's getting cooler, but I don't know. What's your take on the market right now?
Yeah, so I would say across the country for sure, we've cooled down, but you got to put it in perspective, right? It's cooled down from the craziest it's ever been. It's never been this crazy. Even during 2004 through 2006, it wasn't this crazy. So we've cooled down. We're not as crazy as we were a few months ago, but we're still as crazy as it was in 2004 through 2006. So you got to put it all in perspective. Like, maybe now for some of the older folks, right? Maybe now your CD won't melt onto your dash, but it's still not going to be usable, right? It's still going to be damaged.
Yeah.
It just won't be damaged as bad in your car when you get back into your car. So it's crazy. It's still hot. I have one client who bought 13 properties with me a long, long time ago. So we're still moving his inventory. We're still selling it for over market. If you want to buy a house today in Phoenix, at least, you still have to pay over market. You can't pay market value. It's just your offer will not be considered at market value.
Got it. Now let's talk about how this is related to sales, because as the market is more competitive, obviously it's harder to get a deal. And just the group that are here, just to get an idea, it's mostly people in Israel that doing wholesaling in the US. So everything is virtual. Again, it's virtual wholesaling from Israel. That's the title of the group. 99% of the people on this call live in Israel. They try to do business in America. So everything is closing over the phone for the most part. Again, some people have partners on the ground. So let's talk about, again, what's in general. Do you do everything virtual? Do you do face-to-face? I know you are in Oklahoma City.
We prefer face-to-face when we can. Obviously, there's some challenges, right? Because we're in Oklahoma as well. But even here, there are times where we want to do face-to-face, and it's not a viable option. Either there are some homeowners that are still fearful of COVID, right? They have a respectful fear for COVID, which is fine. Even though we live in Arizona, and for the most part, Arizona hasn't really given any seriousness there, especially in the investor community. But homeowners, there are homeowners that are very concerned about it. So there's that. You got some people that are distressed landlords, which we bought. I think a larger percentage of our deals were distressed landlords because of COVID. And so in those situations, right, obviously that's a virtual deal. You got probate, where you can talk to the son or the daughter or whoever, but you still got 3 other people involved in the transaction. So we're still doing it virtual, but when we can, we prefer face-to-face.
Got it. Now, one of the biggest marketing line, I guess, is to run the perfect seller's appointment. Can you give us your take about how to run the perfect seller's appointment over the phone in general? Again, I read your book. I'm going to get a copy of your book in a second, which is a great book, Active Listening 2.0, and I will show a picture in a second. How would you approach the perfect call when you try to close over the phone?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And our approach is 100% the same. I see no reason to alter it, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with a distressed seller. You're still establishing the rules to start the meeting. Say, hey, hi, I'm at the end. It's going to be yes or a no. You're not allowed to think about it. Now, we don't say it that rudely or abruptly. Obviously, we have a professional way of saying it. But at the end of the day, we're still setting the rules from the very beginning. Hey, hi, it's going to be a yes or a no. And if you tell me you're going to think about it, I'll just take it as a no, right? So that's still the same. And we still get you through pain. We still get to help you uncover and discover why you'd ever sell your house to a cash buyer like me. And we'll spend a good amount of time, like majority of our time on the call is going to be going over why you would ever sell this, right? And it's either to, because you're tired of this foreclosure, you hate your bank, this HOA is a bunch of fascists, you hate your family, you want to move closer to your grandkids, whatever it is, we're going to spend a good amount of time there, right? 10, 20 minutes on there. So that process is still the same. And then as far as uncovering all the objections, we always do it after pain. The traditional sales process is going over the objections at the very end, right? Go for the close, and then they're going to tell you all the reasons why they don't want to close with you, and you got to handle all those objections. Our process is still, hey, let's put all the objections on the table right now. Why wouldn't you? What will stop you from signing with me today? And then once we deal with all those objections, then we go for the close. So our process, whether in person or on the phone, would be 100% the same, and I see no reason to change it. Now, I will say the one thing that changes is you cannot be as, what's the word I'm looking for? You might have to be a little bit less assertive. We're very passionate about being assertive. We're never aggressive. Whether we're in the living room or on the phone, we're never aggressive. But some of the things you may not be as assertive on the phone, just because we've only been kicked out every one of my organizations, we've only been kicked out of a house twice, right? It takes a lot to kick someone out of a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to hang up on somebody. So that's
Correct.
the only weakness, right, in our process. Why would I know process? That's the only weakness you have if you're doing it over the phone. So, so you got that, and the body language just doesn't convey as well. So, but you work with what you got. So, but I wouldn't change the process.
Steve, on that call, again, are you aiming to do a closing on the first call in one call, or you take parts, coming back with an offer? What's the strategy you use when, trying to close over the phone?
Sure. So the call we're talking about here, are you talking about on the very first time you talk to them, or on a scheduled call?
I'm talking about after a warm lead came in, and this is the time your acquisition called the guy and going through those stages, right? Eventually providing
on that call.
Yeah, first touch.
One call.
Yeah, but I think the key here is whoever is scheduling that call needs to be perfectly clear. And again, this goes back to process. Is, hey, Yoav, I'm going to have Chaim give you a call on Monday. When he gives you a call on Monday, his intent is actually to buy your home. I just want to make sure you're okay with that. So we're setting the expectation on the previous call. And then when we have this call, hey, Yoav, at the end of our call, time together, it's going to be, yes or a no. If you don't like my price or you don't like me, would you feel comfortable telling me no? Okay. If I can't pay the price you're looking for, are you going to be okay if I tell you no? And if it's a yes, that means we're just going to put everything in writing. Are you comfortable with that? Right. But on the previous call, we said that we're going to buy your house. And if you say, well, no, I'm not ready to sell my house yet, then we are not scheduling that call. Right.
So that goes into a follow-up game, right?
Yeah. And then it goes follow-up game. So that was on the previous call. In the beginning of this call, we say the same thing. It's going to be a yes or in the first couple minutes, it's going to be a yes or a no. You're not allowed to think about it. So it's really more about setting the expectation on the previous call than on that first call. Not a real first call, but on that buy call.
Yeah. So the process pretty much is having somebody, again, it's a lead manager or any person who is designated doing the follow-up games and pretty much providing the acquisition calls, which the prospect confirmed that is, the aim is to sell his property, right? And those calls, this is when it's going to go up to the acquisition, aiming for a kill in one call.
Absolutely.
Understood.
That's awesome. Now, can you talk about being the assertive and setting the ground rules in the beginning of the call? Because I think this is huge. I think that's probably what 99% of wholesalers don't do, because they're coming more of I'm here to serve you and find a win-win, which is true, but they are coming with a different mindset to the call than it's either yes or no. Anything that is not either way, it's a no. How do you what's the mindset that you see that because you coach a lot of people in the sales process? Do you feel that's the biggest challenge, or this is other challenges?
It's a challenge because it's a mindset, and we have to fix that mindset before they can have success, right? So it's something definitely you have to touch on. And again, we're assertive, we're not aggressive, but we're not soft either, right? So when we're saying it's gonna be a yes or a no, you have to have that difficult conversation, because if you don't have that difficult conversation and you go through this whole appointment and you spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour, sometimes 3 hours, and you get to the end and you find out that they were never able to say yes, you just wasted a lot of time that could have been spent talking to other prospects, other appointments, other sales calls, maybe working on some important projects, some important initiatives to help you grow your business. Like, you're losing all that time is expensive. Our time is not free. The other thing is you got to remember that if I don't buy a house, right now I have monthly overhead. Our monthly overhead is like 30, 40 grand in our wholesale company, right? So if I don't buy a house this month, it is expensive. It's going to cost me 30, 40 grand, right? But if I don't buy a house, I'm not going to be out on the streets. I don't have to buy a house. But when you're calling a motivated homeowner, they need to sell their house. Whether it's you or somebody else, they have a need. We don't have a need. And if you come up and you approach it with this mindset that, hey, I can buy your house. If I don't buy your house, I'm going to be okay. You have to have that approach. So like, if I don't buy Haim's house, maybe I'll buy Yoav's house. If I don't buy his house, maybe I'll buy someone else's house. I'm buying a house. It could be yours if you qualify. If you don't, it's no big deal. And we move on. And it's that quiet confidence that they have to deal with. That, they're like, well, then I hope Steve buys my house. So it's a psychological game.
Yeah, Steve, I got a question again. Obviously process-wise, and I understand fully the process, and it's amazing when you have like a lead manager, a designated person who's looking for the warmer leads to provide them to the acquisition. A lot of our guys, they have a lean, at least at the beginning, a very lean operation, meaning they have a cold caller, they have a texter, and they have themselves, right? So what happens is that the actual leads, they come in directly to them, right? And they are the one doing the calls. They still don't have the privilege, understanding, having somebody prior them talking to that person, understanding the level of motivation. So there's any tip you can suggest maybe, or anything like you mentioned, to qualify before we understand spending a lot of time on somebody, understanding is not really motivated. Do you have perhaps any tip for those guys that they still don't have that part of the process?
Sure. So I look at cold calling as the same way as I look at direct mail, pay-per-click, website, TV, whatever, right? Cold calling is a lead source. We do not count that as a call. Even though it's cold calling, we do not count that as a conversation, right? That's just trying to get people to raise their hands, right? So then the real first call is to disqualify. Find out why this person doesn't want to work with us, right? You can call it qualify. We look at it disqualifying. Tell them all the reasons why they would never want to work with us. And then after that, if it sounds like they'll still want to work with us, then we'll book the next call, which is to buy the house. We don't want to close on it on that very first call because we have an expectations issue, right? If you're calling and they're not ready to sell, and you go for the close, there's a wide gap in expectations. If you just think about every time you've been upset with somebody, let's pick on Haim. Every time I've been upset with Haim, it's because I expected one thing and he gave me something else. And if you just think about your relationships, your marriage, your kids, when you're buying a product, you expected one thing, you got something else, and that caused frustration. It's the same thing here when you're talking to a seller. If they're not ready to sell their house and they're just like, they responded to a text message and you try to close on that call, they're still in information gathering stage, right? You try to close them, that's a huge chasm to
it's a huge gap.
Yeah. So that's the reason why on that call, we're just figuring out, hey, even if we made you an offer that you love, there's no way you would consider it. Like, well, maybe we consider it. Okay. And then at that point, we're talking about scheduling a call. And then we set up the other call where we're trying to close.
To provide with an offer, with an actual offer, going for the kill. Got it. Awesome. So I'm happy we clarified it. So, what is considered. So pretty much, if we don't have a lead manager, our first call with the prospect will be the first touch, going through a process with them. And the next call, that's going to be the one we're going to aiming for, going for the kill.
Exactly. So I look at it as it's a 2-call process. On the first call, we're only selling appointments. That's it. We're selling appointments. On the second call, we're trying to buy a house. But if you go in and try to buy a house, there's someone that I learned a long time ago, and he called this first date-itis, right? Where basically you're trying to close on the first date. And a lot of first dates have been ruined because you try to close on the first date, right? So expectations.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Got it. Can you talk again? So for those of you who don't know, Steve has a great book, Active Listening. So I highly recommend. It's a very quick read, but with a lot of very practical tips, especially if you're in the acquisition game and if you're doing wholesaling. It's all about acquisition and lead generation. So highly recommend. And one of the tips that you give them about you call it scorch the earth. I've used it a lot in the Bay Area when I was doing deals. Can you explain this method and the psychology behind it? Because it's great tip, especially in competitive market.
Yeah. And thank you for reading that book. So scorching the earth is basically in any market where it's competitive, right? You got multiple wholesalers, investors, whoever's trying to buy the house, and you need to separate yourself. And the way we separate ourselves is when we're having a conversation and we can see that we're not going to buy this house on this call, or it appears we're losing traction, right? We're too far apart. We'll end the call. And when we say end the call, I'm not saying hang up. I'm saying it just sounds like this is not going to work. It just sounds like we're not going to be able to buy your house. We're too far apart. And then they say, yeah, it looks like it's over. I say, okay, now that it's over, so that's step one, is we're lowering their guard, right? Because when you say now that it's over, they're thinking, all right, it's over. This guy can't close me anymore. And they've lowered all their guard. And at this point, we want to switch hats, and we'll physically demonstrate, right? And let me take off my home buyer hat and put on my my advisor hat. And it's say, Chaim, Yoav, you seem really nice. I want to make sure no one takes advantage of you. Can I share with you a few things to look out for when you sign a contract with somebody else? And I say, make sure you get a $10,000 non-refundable earnest, because if someone's buying your house for $180,000, but they're uncomfortable writing a check for $10,000, would that make you feel comfortable? It's like, no, that wouldn't. Okay, so you can see that. Also, some of these guys, they're cash buyers, but they don't actually intend to buy your home. They're just trying to sell the contract. So make sure you put in the contract that the contract's not assignable, because what happens is, you got your home packed. It's a couple days before close. You're ready to write the next chapter in your story. And if they call you and say that they couldn't sell the contract and they can't close, what's going to happen to you? How would that make you feel? And then the last thing is we'll say, make sure you get a proof of funds, because these cash buyers are actually going to get a mortgage, possibly from Chaim himself, right? But they're going to get a mortgage to buy your home. And I think one of the reasons why you reached out to me is because you wanted a cash buyer. So they're going to get a mortgage. And if they don't qualify, again, the same scenario. Like, what happens if they call you the last minute and say they didn't qualify for their mortgage? They're like, oh, that can't have that happen. Right. That's the reason why I want to make sure you're checking for these things. And when you do these things, you can get one of three outcomes. They're going to say, oh my God, I had no idea how bad the industry was. What price do I need to be for you to buy my house? Second one is you leave, right? It's not ideal, but you leave. And they call you back a few days later. It's like, wow, I asked those questions with other people. They can't do those things. Yeah, I want to go with you. What price do I have to be? And the third one, the most likely outcome, is you'll never hear from them again. And that happens, right? But if you have this practice in your process, over time, if you can close an extra deal, 2 deals a quarter, it's worth sharing the scorching the earth.
Got it.
I've used that yesterday. Amazing strategy. I've used that yesterday and I left. So I'm hoping I'm going to get a call in a couple of days.
Hopefully.
But amazing. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great strategy, but there is a caveat that I think you didn't mention. The 3 questions that you ask them to ask other wholesalers, it's terms that you can do yourself, right? Because
I can do it myself. I can do it myself, right?
You can.
But B, in all the times we've done this, only 3 times has anyone ever asked us for the $10,000 non-refundable, which we did, right? So if you feel uncomfortable with $10,000, you can do $5,000, $3,000, $1,000. No matter what you offer, it's higher than everybody else as far as non-refundable, right?
And usually wholesalers will not even put, a lot of wholesalers will not even put a binder, even not 500. So, even giving $1,000, $2,000 already, you're an advantage in front of those guys who are afraid to put their money.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome tip. But obviously you need to be a little bit more advanced and much more comfortable. And I wouldn't use it unless it's a slam dunk deal that you can back up your word. Yeah. Right.
Yep. It has to be a killer deal. We're not doing this on like skinny deals.
Yeah. It needs to be solid in knowing you're going to go for it if he calls back, right? You don't want to be Chaim, Steve, we got a couple of questions built up.
Sure.
Is that a good time to go through them a bit? So we have Eyal asking, Steve, are you going to be in the Closer Olympics this year?
I am going to not as a contestant this year.
You're going. I think you're cutting off a bit for a second.
Yeah, this year I'll be a judge, not a contestant.
Awesome.
Which is actually, I enjoy that because now I get to provide all the commentary and point out everything that someone screwed up, so everyone can learn.
Beautiful. We have Gal asking, and again, I think you maybe answered this one, but why wouldn't you try to close on the very first call? how far would you go on the very first call? I mean, to what stage? Where would you stop on the very first call?
On the very first call, really, we're trying to figure out if they'll meet with us, right? Now, every once in a while, we'll close on the first deal, on the first call. But when we do, we are very intentional with pivoting. I always say, hey, at the beginning, we were saying that if it made sense, we would go ahead and schedule an appointment. It sounds to me like you want to get this wrapped up right now. And they're like, yeah, I do. So, okay, so I just want to be very clear. So you're telling me if I put this in writing, you feel comfortable working with us today? And they say yes. Well, then, okay, now we're pivoting to go for the close now. But part of the process is we're not aggressive, right? We're always slowing down. The game is not for us to close them, right? The mindset here. The game is not for us to close them. The mindset is for them to close us. Beautiful. Why should I buy your house when I could buy Haim's house, or I can buy this other guy's house? Like, why should I work with you? And it sounds really weird initially, but if you think about, back in high school,
I think we lost him.
Yeah,
right. It's the bad boy guy. He's cool, right? Am I back?
Yeah, now you're back. Sorry, Steve. If you can repeat the last part on high school.
Yeah. So back in high school, the bad boy got all the girls, right? Why? Because he couldn't care less about them. He was not chasing them, right? He was too cool, and because of that, he was irresistible to the girls. There was something I learned a long time ago, back in the realtor days, was pursued prospects run away. Mm-hmm. If you need the business, they know it. If you don't need the business, they're more like, I hope Steve buys my house. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why.
Love it. Steve, we got a lot of people asking, where can they find your book, Audible, or where can they buy the actual book?
Yep, Amazon Audible.
Active Listening 2.0. Great book. Highly, highly recommend. A lot of great tips. Another question for you, more like tactical. How do you make the transition from having a very personal conversation when you find out the pain point? How do you do strategically the transition to an offer, right? So because you were a great listener, you ask them all these personal questions, which is part of the process. How do you transition to presenting the offer? And how do you, again, there's one of the questions, how do you drop in that the anchor price into the conversation?
Sure. So as far as transitioning, Haim, as I understand it, you're really frustrated with your employer. They're not paying you, causing you to miss payments. You're exhausted dealing with the banks. They're just not returning your calls. Every time you call, it's you're on hold for 15 minutes and never take any notes, and you're just over it. Am I right? All right. So how important is it to you just get this taken care of? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being nothing changes, I'll be fine, and 10, like I just need to get this done with. Where are you? I say 10. Okay, got it. Well, Haim, everyone says that. And what we found is that there's one of 3 things that can stop us from working together. It's the timing, it's the price, or other people. In your situation, Haim, which of those 3 is most likely to prevent us from working together?
Probably.
And whatever they tell you, right, is their biggest objection. And so we address it, right? And then after that, we go into the other 2 objections. Like we'll just touch it real quick. But whatever they tell you first is their biggest objection. That's what you can handle. And 90% of the time it's price, right? And so then we go to price. Okay, got it. Price. Okay, so Haim, I imagine that before I came over, you had a chance to think about how much you were looking to get. Would you mind sharing with me, in raw numbers, what you were hoping to get?
150.
And oftentimes they'll kind of like be combative, like, I'm not telling you, right? It's like, hey, I get it.
You call me.
Yeah, you call me. Well, I get it. All right. Was there anything else you thought about? Have them think about it some more. Haim, off the record, can you share with me what you were thinking about? And then that one, for whatever reason, works. I don't know the psychology, but that one works. But let's say that doesn't work. Then I'm going to say, actually, before we had our call, I had a chance to look to see what other people were paying for homes nearby. And I saw there were some homes that sold nearby for $80,000 to $90,000. Now, I'm not saying that's my offer, But if someone were to present you an offer for between 80,000, 90,000, what will you see yourself doing then? And so I'm anchoring with some other person's number. So I'm not the bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if my offer is 100, I'm going to say someone's paying between 80 and 90. And now they can get upset. And they get upset. Yeah, I thought that was really low too. What were you hoping to hear?
You gave an offer without giving an offer.
Yeah. And if they say they like that offer, great. But if they don't, no big deal. We can negotiate. But
and I think the big tip is that your mayo is higher than your anchor price, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, not only that, but there's this game that we all learned this, that whoever says the number first loses. So now that we've said a number, now they feel comfortable sharing their number.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So I'm not the bad guy because it's not my number, but we kind of, trick their defenses because now that I've said my number, they feel comfortable sharing their number.
Awesome. That's great. Listen, guys, this is great tips that this is how the pros close. Any other questions that you have here from before we continue, Yoav?
Not something specific. Yeah, so far we answered all of them, I think.
I see one here where it sounds like, what about wholesaling? I just want to be clear. We assign, we wholesale, right? When we tell people that, make sure the contract's not assignable, they don't ask us to make the contract not assignable. They just ask other people to make the contract not assignable, right? That's the scorched earth method, is they don't ask us to do what we tell them to ask other people to do. But even if they did, which they haven't with us, we would just double close it. In Phoenix, we can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's awesome. Question.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, I heard you one time say that you are not, because you're doing fix and flip sometimes, but not by choice. So can you
reluctant flipper.
Explain that? Reluctant flipper.
Yeah, I'm a reluctant flipper. So one of my core values is integrity. I live my life as if my mom's behind me looking over my shoulder at all times, right? So every property we contract, we fully intend to close one way or another. So if we can't assign it, we will close on it. And when that happens, that's the worst margins because obviously we overpaid, right? Because we couldn't sell it. So we flip properties, and it's not even a flip; it's a wholesale. But we close 100% of our transactions that are closable, right? Like title's not an issue. So that's why we are reluctant flippers. We suck at flipping.
Mm-hmm.
It's more people to manage, more people, more documents, more processes, like just in and out. I just want to get in and out.
Yeah, for sure. So can you talk about because again, you're doing deals in Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma is one of the states that are not very wholesalers friendly. If I remember correctly. Do you recommend when you teach and coach other people to always go for the assignment first, or to do double close, or sometimes to do a mix? What's your take about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can wholesale, you should wholesale. I think wholesaling is the lowest barrier to entry. So if you can wholesale, you should absolutely wholesale first. Double closings, we only double close if we're making a large fee from someone that we don't know, right? Like we wholesale something a couple months ago for it was 57,000, I think. There was someone that knows us and they know how we operate, right? So we had no problems with that one. And he knew how much we were making on that one. But if it's someone we never worked with before and it's a $50,000 wholesale fee, we're going to double close it. We've got one right now. We're supposed to be closing, actually, I think today. It's going to be our record. It's going to be $138,000 assignment fee. We know them, but we're still double closing. Assignment fee. We're double closing on that one.
Okay. And now they know that you're going to, they know your spread usually, or do you always hide your assignment?
No, they usually know. They usually know because Max, right? Max is a savage.
Yeah.
Max is a savage. I am a friendly savage. If you don't close because of how much we're making, you will be blacklisted from us, and we will never work with you again.
I agree.
So it's 100%. Very clear cut. All right. The old saying, the only time you should look into your neighbor's bowl is to make sure he has enough to eat. I firmly believe in that policy. Like, don't worry about how much I'm making. I remember 1 week, a few years ago, I paid $100K in assignment fees on 2 deals, right? One was 47 and one was 60. And in both of those, I called them up and they were probably waiting for that call. In both of them, I called them up and I said, hey, I saw how much you made on that. I'm happy for you. Send me your next deal. Right? Because I want to let them know I'm the easy guy, right? I don't care how much you make. If the numbers work for me, they work for me. So I have no shame in how much I make, and I don't care how much other people make. It's none of my business.
100%. And because again, I was a buyer and a wholesaler, and I know that's kind of what the wholesalers want to hear. So this is how you kind of build relationship with wholesalers to send you the best deals. Listen, I'm not going to count your money. Send me your best deals first, and I even can help you. Maybe we can partner, and you can have, again, it's a much more easier angle to attack. We have here a question here because you're doing deals both in Oklahoma and Phoenix. If there's any difference in the negotiation or in the sales process between the two markets, or the one that you notice?
It's not a fair comparison. I don't think I can speak on this fairly, because in Phoenix, our marketing is predominantly pay-per-click and direct mail. In Oklahoma, it's 100% TV. So we're just advertising on TV in Oklahoma. And we know that when someone calls on TV, they're the hottest possible lead. So I'm not sure I can clearly say what the difference is. I mean, I can say they're nicer, right? They're not as jaded as the people in Phoenix, because we are the wholesale guru capital of the world in Phoenix.
Yeah, yes, you are.
But I would say that.
What do you guys eat over there? What do you guys eat in Phoenix? Tell me.
Well, we're all following Sean Terry. All right, we're just doing whatever Sean Terry told us to do.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. So I think the follow-up question is, can you share a little bit of your KPIs again, and what's the difference that you see between the two markets, and the different marketing strategies, the different marketing methods that you use?
Well, I could say the biggest difference, because in Phoenix, we're Maricopa County. It's one of the top, it's one of the easiest counties to work with for any industry as far as public records. So we can close. If I get a distressed seller that has clean title, I can close tomorrow, right? In Phoenix. That's how good our documentation is as far as public records go. In Oklahoma, man, it takes forever to clear title. It is frustrating, right? Especially going from one market where it's really easy into another market where it's 5 to 6 weeks just to clear title. It's crazy to me. As far as KPIs, I can say that our average fee is significantly lower. But I think that is also a function of the median income or the median prices. And the other thing I would say, as far as you got fees, how long it takes to close. Because we do TV, it's a lot more rural, and so our reach is wider. So we don't get as much in the metro area. We're getting more in the outer regions, and I think that's also screwing up with our fees.
Also, days on the market, I assume, is higher because of that, right? I mean, the quicker you close the deal, right? You sign it.
We're not even trying to market it anymore until we have clean title, just because it takes forever to get clean title.
Gotcha.
And what's the lead to deal ratio? The leads to deal ratio. How many leads do you need to close a deal in each market?
That's a great question that Max can answer a lot better than I can. Max is dealing with the day-to-day operations. I'm just a pretty face.
You're just counting the checks. You're just cashing the checks. Good.
Yeah, Max has to do all the hard work. Why should I do the hard work?
Steve, we gotta, going back a bit to the sales. We got a question from Gal Hoffman. On the second call, when you give the offer, what is the flow of the conversation? You go over all the issues you spoke on the first call. Let's say I found the motivation after the first call and we schedule a second call to give the offer. Will it be the day after, a few hours later? They usually start the conversation with me saying, what's the offer? How do I go from there?
Sure. So as far as motivation goes, we're very particular in not going too far into motivation on the first call when we're trying to book the appointment. On the first call, when we're trying to book the appointment, all we care about is pain and equity. If you've got pain and you got equity, we're scheduling another call, right? That's all we care about. We don't go too far into pain. And the reason why is if you go too far into pain and motivation, if you go too deep on the first call, that's your ammo. That's what gets them emotional. That's what's going to compel them to work with you. If you get too far into emotions on the first call, you can't do it again on the second call. So it's really important on the first call, we don't drive too much into pain and motivation because it's just going to screw yourself on the second call.
So that's very interesting. It's very interesting. And it's I think it's a very interesting point also a bit maybe focusing on this, because where do you stop? I mean, how deep do you go? Let's say, understanding the motivation. Obviously, I'm guessing one of the questions you ask, right, beside me calling, I mean, what's the reason you're considering selling, right? Then open up with you, right? The pain, you're starting to share the pain. So where do you stop? And how actually on the second call, with the second call is pretty much for you to come back with them with an offer. How do you actually go back to that emotional stage?
Yeah. So again, we explain how the call goes, right? So, hey, y'all have typically homeowners that we work with, what they want to know is what do we pay, how soon they're going to get it, what the process looks like. Am I missing anything? Obviously, for me to figure out if I'm going to buy your home, I have to ask you some questions. Are you okay with that? Right. So we set that up in the very beginning. We don't make offers. We're not an offer making business. Right. So I'm going to ask some questions, make sure there's a good fit for you, a good fit for me. Right. So that's the first part. And then after we do that, when we spoke on the call earlier, you had mentioned that you were dealing with whatever. Can you tell me more about that? And then we go through all the pain questions, which I think all the pain questions are in the book. So then you start going through all the pain questions, and the pain questions are deep, right? It's not, I used to think foreclosure is pain or probate is pain or, a divorce is pain. That's not pain. That's a pain symptom. That is what you can see because there's pain. So what's real pain? Fighting with the wife, sleepless nights, car repossessed, maxed out credit cards, going to swipe your credit card at the bank, or not the bank, at the grocery store, and it doesn't clear. That's real pain. That embarrassment there is real pain. We're trying to uncover that, not the, I saw you in foreclosure, so I know you need to sell. That's entirely intellectual. That's the reason why people always say this foreclosure is not a big deal, because it's very surface level. It feels like it shouldn't be surface level, but it's 100% surface level. That is just an indicator. That's not pain. We need to uncover pain. We need to basically re-traumatize them at that second call to get them emotional enough to compel them to take action.
Awesome.
Understood.
Great answer. Probably to do last question here again. What do you suggest for someone who works in the Midwest or more of like a cash flow market like Oklahoma City, and when they want to jump to the major league, to a more competitive, higher median price point market like Phoenix, Bay Area, Seattle, and the like?
So there's
you do
two
anything
things.
differently?
Just do it. But B, also make sure your systems are good, right? Because you're going to stress test your business when you go in another market. We actually had yesterday on my podcast Mark Stubler, and he talked about how they were crushing in Salt Lake City and they expanded to Indianapolis. And what ended up happening was they were making money in Indianapolis, but their business not crumbled, but it took a major step back in Salt Lake because their operations and foundation was not there yet. So just make sure your systems and processes are tight, really everyone knows what they're doing. Processes are documented. The business can run without you being present. If it can do that, let's go, baby. Let's go to another market.
Yeah. And again, and I will add again, if you don't have a big operation, I think, and if they don't have a big operation, make sure you have bigger budget for marketing. And number two, that your sales process or your sales skills is much better, because once you get a good lead or a hot lead, you want to make sure you close it, because you're gonna, again, it's more sophisticated sellers usually, and each lead costs much more. So there's much more on the line when you close. Awesome. So Steve, how can people reach out to you or follow you after they buy your book, Active Listening 2.0? Where they can get it again? On
Amazon and Audible.
Okay, great book. Highly recommend. So how can people follow you and see what you do?
So I have my Instagram handle at steve.trang underneath my name. There's the Real Estate Disruptors. You can find that.
Cutting off again.
Yes, Steve.
Spotify, YouTube. Definitely there. Or Sorry about that.
We're gonna ask you to say again about your Real Estate Disruptors, one of the best podcasts in the game.
For sure.
Highly recommend. All the big players are there. So that's great place. So where they can find you there? It's on YouTube for sure. And
YouTube,
where else?
iTunes, Spotify, and then there's always stevetrain.com.
Awesome. Steve, we are super grateful to have you here. I know our community, very appreciative. We have a lot of thank you here. Everybody are looking forward to it. So we don't take it for granted that you decided to share your time with us here.
Huge honor.
Yeah, huge honor. And hopefully we'll see you in the next meeting.
Yes, sir. Group. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay.